Okay, let me do a quick talk about Daryl as I'm still trying to kind of figure things out about this book a couple of weeks after having finished it. So, going by the description of the book, Daryl Cook is a man who seems to have everything: a quiet home in Western Oregon, a beautiful wife, and a lot of friends to fuck her while he watches. But as he explores the cuckolding lifestyle, he finds himself tugging at threads that threaten to unravel his marriage, his town, and himself. Uh, Jackie Ess is an American writer, trans woman, trans, god damn it, trans writer. Um, and this isn't a trans novel. It is told definitely from a viewpoint, kind of looking outside in a way, looking outside, looking back in at, I don't know if it's what you would call straight culture, what gets cloaked as straight culture, as seemingly normal, not normal, but as the norm, where um, there's a lot of stuff going on that is a lot more complicated than just straight vanilla or one of these things. Things are things we have kind of these very enforced ideas, especially in this book. It's about masculinity and what masculinity is, and definitely kind of going back and forth between what's kind of a very kind of unfortunate view of masculinity, of the idea of being the big dominator, of winning everything, of being on the top of the pile and making everyone else bow to your amazing male powerness, which, as Daryl points out in the book, because he's definitely apt to philosophize, maybe justify, he says that actually his way of life, of enjoying his humiliation, his being ground underfoot, like finding sexual enjoyment as well as other kind of enjoyment in that the humiliations of being subjugated, is actually the healthiest, because it's a pyramid. And guess what? Only that there's a tiny percentage that gets to be the I guess alpha male in this viewpoint of the world, and the rest of us have to serve. And he's just somebody who's decided to embrace that and enjoy that. Now the thing with this is it's not a settled thing. He's just at the beginning of the novel. He's come off of overdosing and possibly having tried to commit suicide. He doesn't really admit that himself, that he was doing it, though he admits that he was doing quite self-destructive behavior. And a lot of the book is him trying to kind of figure out how to be right with himself, how to figure out things. And a part of that is him kind of going through this, the cuckolding, his not going through, but explaining his cuckolding thing of he's married to a woman. Um, he's inherited a lot of money, and there's definitely implications that a lot of people in the book are with him, perhaps because of his money, and or maybe from his viewpoint, maybe are exploiting him for his money, and that is what they are getting out of the thing. Now, the other thing to look at there is that for all Daryl puts himself as the subjugated, the bottom person, he actually kind of like maybe unfortunately a lot of kind of people who are being submissive are kind of controlling the situation from the bottom. It's a doming from the bottom, a dominating from the bottom, and doing it in such a way that he doesn't even particularly accept responsibility for that. There's the odd time he thinks about his wife in this book. It's not it's he's into cuckolding, but he's not particularly interested in his wife. At least that's what seems to come across. She is very much a character on the side, but every once in a while he'll think, "Oh, is this what she wants? Am I hurting her by wanting this? Is this one of these? Yes, she is exploiting him, but she's having to give in to his desires to be cuckolded, and that maybe is something that's actually damaging to her." So there's very much that, because he is much more interested in the guys that she is with, and indeed it enters into some interesting relationships with those guys. Probably primarily Bill, who is kind of a big, kind of seems to be a fairly good-hearted guy who is mostly straight. This is this whole kind of the wavery thing of what is straight in this book and what is uh and that it's really good at kind of exposing kind of the gaps in there of if you're getting a blowjob from another guy, if you're not the one who's if you're only receiving the blowjob, does that make you gay, or is that like and this is still very much kind of a thing of masculinity where it's straight masculinity where you know doing the act, but receiving, maybe that's not so bad. Giving, receiving, those are other terms, but you know what I mean. It's one of those things, and there's very much through this book of that Daryl is an ideal vessel for this because he very much takes upon other people's ideas throughout the book, and kind of he can change, whether he's with Bill, whether he's with this yoga woman who's got very much kind of more of an earth earth mother kind of warm, caring, giving relationship. Um, Clive, a what seems to be a kind of a rather sociopathic guy who puts himself forward as a therapist with his wife, and then enters into a sexual relationship with that wife, with knowing that Daryl is into the cuckolding, who gives Daryl labels, psychological labels, saying like, oh, borderline personality, that not having a fixed personality. And I mean, it's significant that Jackie Ess gives all this theory comes out through Clive, who you just know can't be trusted and is rather malignant and manipulative. And it's interesting that that's where you put the diagnosis angle of this novel about what's Daryl's deal. So you don't automatically just take that and run with it. Don't say, oh well, this settles Daryl. It's like, no, that doesn't really settle Daryl there. Um, so yeah, he's yeah. See, I'm struggling to kind of to talk about the book, um, about getting kind of. I think the things that I enjoy about the book is that it's really kind of, it opens up an idea of male masculinity, of kind of male sexuality in a way, in a kind of feels very refreshing kind of way, because it's rather unafraid, perhaps because of the point of view of the author, to kind of delve into what might be considered outside the pale of what's very kind of rigid, narrow definitions of masculinity and acceptable masculine activities, if you want to put it that way, and of straight male activities. Um, just and that Daryl himself is somebody who is capable of really being kind of empathetic, of really kind of getting into people, but is also really capable of doing really nasty things. He does, what's he done? What has he actually done with his what has he done with his wife here, and putting, and like whatever the shared culpability is there, like what has he done in that relationship? And also when he gets jealous, it's really he's incredibly ruthless and dangerous in a way. There's actually one scene in this book where he comes upon a dog that is lost, and I was like, oh God, oh God, oh God. It's like I didn't want Daryl to have care for this animal, even though I think everything he was doing was done from a good heartedness. It gave me a lot of anxiety. Suddenly there's this animal, and that like he might be the one responsible for care. It's like I did not trust Daryl there in that situation, because Daryl keeps you unsettled throughout the book, which is really good to have this character who kind of comes off as like, oh, I'm very submissive. Oh, I that's his whole thing. But you're just like, oh, I'm uncertain. And I mean, the book has a murder mystery in it. The book has kind of genuine danger in it, and you wonder where the book is going to go by the end. And I mean, I'm not going to spoil the ending, um, except to say that I think Jackie Ess, I think, was quite well aware of how uh, characters who aren't the norm are often have been in the past in the history of literature have often been ra- horribly punished for just being different. So I think Jackie S was aware of that, and I think that mitigates over certain kind of like questions I have about the end. The ending is interesting in itself as a kind of a thing of I was disappointed in the ending, but then I thought about it when it's like, oh no, okay, I can see what she was doing there. What kind of an ending is it depends on what viewpoint, like what Daryl's viewpoint of the ending is, what Daryl's interpretations definitely shades what you're presented as this ending. So yeah, yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed this book. It's definitely it's a book where there is a trans character in there, but actually it's one of the few places where Daryl makes a very kind of much of a statement of I'm not someone who's transitioning. This is not my confusion about this stuff is not me being transitioned. And he kind of makes the kind of the joke about it's like, well, it's like, you know, if you're into if you're into something, then everything has got to be that. And he makes the point that, oh, the trans character thinks that I'm transitioning. It's like, well, of course she would, because she's doing that, and so she uses that filter on everything. And I mean, that's the thing you could say about Daryl is his kind of his viewpoint of the world of this kind of the male hierarchy of submission and domination, and of love of humiliation. Of course, that is what he uses to view his story, and you know, from beginning to the ending, that is very much in place. So yeah, yeah, a really fascinating book. I am definitely going to pick up when Jackie S's next book comes out. I will definitely pick it up. It's told in a very kind of matter of fact kind of way. There's a couple of times he's been told that, oh, you know, you should write a blog or something like that, and it's you know, so it's not like flowery language. It's much more, oh, this is kind of casual kind of blog language of him doing these little sections, which build up to just a portrait of this guy and of the world he lives in, and the people, most of them the men that he interacts with. Yeah, yeah. All right, I will leave it there. More videos later.